Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of Dark Phoenix. This movie is directed by first-time director Simon Kinberg. The movie stars James McAvoy, Sophie Turner, Michael Fassbender, and Jessica Chastain. Dark Phoenix is about the mutant Jean Grey. The X-Men are in space in 1992 investigating what they believe to be a solar flare. It turns out to be an energy surge, and this energy infects Jean, giving her immense power. So now she must decide whether or not she wants to use this power for good or for evil. When I heard they were doing a Dark Phoenix movie, again, I was torn because I was disappointed in the last movie they did when they attempted that storyline, which was X-Men 3: The Last Stand, but I was a little hopeful because it was the next generation of X-Men actors and characters, so I was a little hopeful. But I was wrong. The movie was just as bad, if not worse, than The Last Stand. And my only joy out of the movie was also the downfall. My joy and my hope was that seeing this cast of actors playing the younger version of the X-Men that some of us grew up with, in 99, 2000 to 2006, I thought that would be enough. I thought that would carry the movie. The nostalgia of seeing this cast and crew together for the last time would be enough. But it wasn't. Because yes, the actors are there, wearing the costumes, having the hairstyles, wearing the makeup, united. But this movie doesn't do a great job of making you care about them. So whenever bad stuff happens to them, you're not invested. Whenever there's an action or a fight scene, it's not as cool because it just comes off bland. A lot of times, it's like characters are just there to be part of the full team roster, and that's it. There's really no individual story arcs. Another issue this movie suffers from is the Dark Phoenix saga happened over the course of many comic books, many years. This was something that built up. But this movie rushes the story arc. Because they didn't wait to do this movie, they should have done it at the end of a trilogy just like they did before, but better. You don't really believe the chemistry between Scott Summers and Jean Grey, or Cyclops and Jean. There isn't enough build-up, so you're not as invested when it finally happens. It's not as tragic or dramatic. There wasn't enough time to develop these characters. And it also didn't help that the Phoenix storyline felt too recent. It was like they just did it. The story is very similar. Simon Kinberg is a comic book writer. He wrote for the X-Men. He wrote for X-Men 3: The Last Stand. So, this movie wanted to do something familiar, but it wanted to subvert expectations. It wanted to do it in such a way that was different from the previous attempt that it failed. When you try to be unique enough, you end up just becoming normal. And that's what this movie was. And it was bland. It was dull. The action and the fight scenes, they didn't rivet you. They didn't grab you. It wasn't anything special until the end of the movie in the third act, involving a train car scene. That was cool. But the rest of the action was just there. It was like I was watching G.I. Joe: Rise of Cobra. Yeah, the action's entertaining for what it is, but you're not really invested because you're not invested in any of the characters either. The acting in this movie is fine, but considering the amount of actors on screen and the talent that's in this movie, that's not saying a whole lot. James McAvoy as Professor X, he's great. He's always been great. He's the highlight of the movie. Now, Michael Fassbender as Magneto, Michael Fassbender's a great actor, but here he never really gets a chance to show it. Just like in Apocalypse, he's really just there. He's someone that they can show on screen, so that's not always Charles Xavier. Jessica Chastain is wasted in this movie. Her role really could have gone to anybody, because she was just so bland and monotone that there really wasn't much to her character. She was very one note. Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, she was good. It's nice to see her doing things outside of Game of Thrones, so she was fine. The rest of the X-Men, unfortunately, they're not given a whole lot of dialogue to really show their acting talent. Ty Sheridan as Cyclops, he's my favorite X-Men character. But here, he's not really given a whole lot to do except for just yelling Jean Grey's name. There's a certain line that he has where he tries to act so tough, and let me just say, it's the one curse word they're allowed to use in a PG-13 movie, and it just didn't work. The writing in this movie and the dialogue is sometimes just silly and cringeworthy. Oh yeah, and Hans Zimmer, the legendary, iconic music composer, did the music for this film. But you could barely tell. Aside from the song during the end fight scene, the music didn't really stand out at all. So, overall, Dark Phoenix is a disappointment. They wrapped up some storylines, but it ended on a way that really wasn't what we wanted. It was almost as if they could tell this is the end for the franchise. And so that's how they seemingly handled it. So because Dark Phoenix could have been a lot better, had this been spread out over a course of a couple movies, I would have been more invested. I would have cared. But because it was all crammed into one film, it didn't work. So I'm going to give Dark Phoenix a C-. So until next time, guys, see ya.